position. Louise was beautiful, charming, and adored balls. Jacqueline was fine to look upon, but nothing notable, and she far preferred her pianoforte to people. And trees. She preferred trees. Truthfully, all Jack wished to do was spend her hours at her music and strolling through nature. It sounded terribly cliché, but music was her life. She'd been so certain she was going to be able to devote her life to it. But when the family coffers needed shoring up, needs must. She could not deny her sister her marriage. She would never be so selfish. She could, however, shower the Duke responsible with her wrath. Drawing in a steadying breath, Jacqueline focused on Stone's open window, gauged her weight, gauged the limb above her, grabbed hold of its rough branch, and swung herself forward through the frame. The pale curtains danced about her like merry ghosts as she glided in and landed upon her booted feet like a cat upon the ornately woven obeson. As she stared at the rug, taking a moment to centre herself, she felt a moment of perfect shock at her own daring. This was a rather unexpected thing to do, but the stakes were exceptionally high. The truth was, she had attempted to make Stone's acquaintance several times in the last week at various functions. Acquaintance. What a terrible thing to be relegated to, when once she had roamed about hills and valleys with him and her brother, happily a part of their wild antics, their chosen mascot. Meeting him had been impossible. Apparently he did not have time for débutantes, even débutantes who'd once deposited frogs in his shirts. No, he was too important now. Too grand as the Duke of Stone. She had grown accustomed to the quiet life of her pianoforte and her lessons in Vienna, an opportunity given to her by her father, who had loved the instrument dearly and sensed her affinity. Now, after spending 4 years abroad with her family, she'd been brought back to London. After such a fulfilling time in Vienna, she was to be trotted out onto the marriage market. A husband of significance to buoy the family coffers was required, after all. Coffers which had been emptied upon some exceedingly poor choices by her father in his bold investments. All of this had culminated in a moment in which her father had, in a fit of shock, read the news of his beloved family's ruin in the news sheet at breakfast, collapsed, and had never risen. The whole family was still reeling more than a year hence. In short, in but a single day's time, they'd lost almost everything. Even her brother Alexander was most alarmed by his sudden position out in the cold, as a marquis with virtually no inheritance, and bailiffs sending rather alarming missives daily. Their mourning had been forced into the background as Alexander had tried to make sense of the bills. She was not the only Peabody who needed to marry for wealth, so, full of ire and purpose, and ready for battle, she lifted her gaze to the meddling man standing before the fire, brandy snifter in hand, brows arched in arrogant surprise. Except, as she caught sight of him, she realised that she was not actually prepared for this war. For one brief moment, she couldn't recall why she'd done this. Why such an endeavour had seemed so entirely important. All thoughts were driven from her mind. Good God! He was beautiful. She didn't remember him being quite this beautiful. Had he always been so exquisitely handsome, so perfect in body, so alive in person? The Duke of Stone stood languid, handsome, perfect, massive. She found herself fairly gaping at the impossibility of his masculine magnificence. Jacqueline was used to exceptionally tall, strong men. All of the men in her family were gifted by the gods, so to speak. But this was different. He was different. Singular. And it struck her then that she had not been so close to him in more than 5 years. In all her years in England and abroad, Jacqueline had not seen a man of such consequential...